I'm John Hamburger of the Restaurant Finance Monitor. Welcome to Demo Day, the Monitor's webinar series where we feature restaurant technology solutions for multi-unit restaurant companies. We're reaching out today to the investors, owners, franchisors, CFOs, and controllers of these great businesses. I know many of you are very busy with day-to-day operations, especially with the restaurant business picking up as it is post-pandemic, but I also know you're always on the lookout to make your businesses more efficient. I hope our Demo Day format, where you can test drive a technology solution, will be helpful in that regard. Today, we preview 3 software and service providers to multi-unit restaurant businesses. Our first presentation today is from Wisely, a leader in customer intelligence for restaurants. Wisely's restaurant CRM and consumer data platform captures and utilizes data in order to maximize a restaurant customer's lifetime value by driving frequency and higher spend. Co-founder and CEO of Wisely, Mike Vichik, is with us today and will be joined by Wisely client partner Warwick McLaren, VP of Omnichannel Marketing for Global Franchise Group, the franchisor of Great American Cookies, Marble Slab Creamery, and Round Table Pizza. Our second presentation will be from Revenue Management Solutions, or better known as RMS. RMS is a tech-empowered consulting firm that provides data-driven solutions to help drive sales and profitability in more than 100,000 restaurants globally. RMS Chief Client Officer Bob Bonafrio and Implementation Manager Vicky Fang are here to demo Materi, a cloud-based franchise control solution designed to empower franchise brands to better understand, manage, and navigate their franchisees' financial health. And last, but certainly not least, given all the hiring issues today in restaurants, is a timely presentation from software company Paradox. Today, you'll meet Olivia, Paradox's conversational AI assistant, who can help your employee recruiters spend more time with people by automating administrative work like screening, interview scheduling, and answering candidates' questions. Joining us today from Paradox are franchise account executive Tori McGlynn and VP of Client Advocacy Josh Seacrest. So before we get started, just a quick note. Today's Demo Day presentations will be housed on the Restaurant Finance Monitor's website under the tab Webinars. So feel free to watch the sessions again or pass the link on to one of your colleagues. And please don't hesitate to contact each of the company representatives here today if you have questions or would like to take a closer look. So let's get started. To kick off today's Demo Day, I'll turn it over to Mike Vichik, co-founder and CEO of Wisely. Mike, take it away.
Hello and welcome to Restaurant Finance Monitor's Demo Day. My name is Mike Vichik, co-founder and CEO of Wisely. Joining me today is Warwick McLaren, VP of Omnichannel Marketing from Global Franchise Group. We'll dive into a conversation with Warwick in just a moment. But first, what is Wisely? Wisely is the customer intelligence platform for restaurants that's reimagined every single interaction between a guest and a restaurant brand end to end. Fundamentally, it's about saying goodbye to transactions, hello to customers. And we found that the best brands in the world across all different types of restaurants are thinking about LTV, lifetime value of the customer. And they're using lifetime value of the customer to inform every decision. Lifetime value is just the amount of profit generated from an individual customer from their first visit all the way through their last. Some of the best brands in restaurants are thinking about these sort of metrics. When you listen to Sweetgreen and Starbucks talk, they talk about it all the time. Some of our clients, California Fish Grill, is using customer lifetime value to make better menu engineering decisions. Bar Taco is using the data to make better real estate decisions. And First Watch is using the data to make better marketing and operations decisions. We fundamentally think that brands that don't think about lifetime value are at risk. First, on the dine-in side, because customers will inevitably flow to the places where they get the best experience. And on the to-go side, there are plenty of other third parties that would love to build a direct relationship with the restaurant customers and also take margin. And if you quote one of the founders of Sweetgreen, they've said that this is the greatest existential threat facing restaurants. And fundamentally, this is a changing of the game for literally every department within a restaurant brand. It's not just a marketing thing. It's not just an ops thing. It's certainly not just a finance thing. And first, from the CEO and board level, everything still is, in large case, revolving around same-store sales. That is an output metric, though, right? It's the consequence of a lot of other things going well or poorly. We would argue that the way that you can control that, the input metrics, are all about customer lifetime value. So acquiring the right customers, retaining them, building their frequency over time. And from a finance perspective, today is all about box economics, AUV, store level margins, same-store sales growth. I think in some amount of time in the future, and some private equity firms are already doing this today, it's going to be increasingly about customer economics, those same acquisition frequency and retention metrics I mentioned. Ops, guest counts are the name of the game. In the future, are we acquiring the right customers and are we retaining them? Fundamentally, are we getting them to come back more frequently? It tells us whether or not we are making friends or losing friends. From a marketing perspective, you might, from a CFO's chair, you might want to ask not just about return on ad spend, but about lifetime return on ad spend. So not just how much sales do we drive in the first visit after a campaign, but what did that do over the entire lifetime of those customers? If it's just pulling forward demand, that's interesting to know, but we should know whether this is incremental or not. So and I think this is one of the things that's a little perhaps counterintuitive, and that is if you think about the top 5% of restaurant customers, they drive on average across all different types of restaurant brands, 27% of revenue. The top 5% of customers drive 27% of revenue. I think that's a really important stat to think about. In the top 20%, they drive about 60% of total revenue. So, if you're thinking about how do you drive valuations or how do you drive value in your loyalty program or any other metric, you really have to kind of have this in the back of your mind. When you're taking an item off the menu, is this an item that's ordered by some of our best customers? When you're making labor decisions, are our servers or our baristas or our managers, are they doing a great job at creating repeat frequency? And it's certainly not an easy thing, right? I think a lot of times CFOs, they get asked every day by a lot of different departments to spend more money, right? Might be real estate. It might be with rising food input prices. It might be with labor pricing. There's a lot of different ways restaurants could spend more money. I think everybody knows that. And as a CFO, I think it's tough because in some cases, you got to say no. Otherwise, you're going to find your margins and profitability in the toilet. But on the other hand, you have to say yes to the right thing. So there's this question of what actually matters, what actually drives lifetime value of the customers. And that's why I say this is hard, because how will you actually know if you are acquiring the most valuable customers? How do you know how to maintain relevance with the 80% of your customer base who's probably not in your loyalty program? And by the way, that would be great if 20% of customers were in loyalty, right? How do you know which feedback issues we should prioritize first? And given that lots of restaurant brands have lots of different customer-facing technologies, how do you get started? Because all the contracts aren't up at the same time. It's really hard to put all this together. So, and that fundamentally is we think the old tools weren't built for this. When you think about the standalone products, they generally don't integrate it. In a full service context, the waitlist and reservation system often doesn't talk to what's happening from an online ordering point of view or across various different restaurants. If someone orders online every day, but then they finally come in with a reservation or a waitlist party, the staff should know that. They shouldn't just show up as a first-time diner. From a loyalty perspective, being able to focus on 100% of your customers, I think, is a really important point, not just the 15 or 20% that are in loyalty. And the same is true with the rest of these. If you're prioritizing feedback from customers, we want to know, is this feedback from a regular? Is this feedback from someone who might be a one and done customer? Those things are important to break out. So Wisely's customer intelligence platform is built to help restaurant brands say goodbye to transactions and hello to customers. When we think about how that works through the customer journey, let's just say we begin with acquiring a customer. At some point in every customer's tenure with a brand, they were acquired for the first time. Wisely helps you figure out ways to get in front of the right people with the right message at the right time. And the way that we do that is by looking at who is already a great customer. And we help you find customers who are very close and similar to those high value existing customers across all the different channels where they spend time online: Facebook, Google, Instagram, and so on. From there, they interact with the brand, and that might be through a dine-in experience or through an online order experience. In both cases, Wisely captures the customer data and makes sure that the people running the doors or running curbside know. Sentiment, it's about capturing feedback from people after a visit. And fundamentally, Wisely's new product that we've recently released in the last week is our customer intelligence suite, which we're calling a customer data platform. It's the first of its kind built for restaurants, and we integrate up and down the restaurant tech stack. And the point there is you want to get the customer data into all of the other systems. So first, I'm going to touch on what we're referring to as operations intelligence. And that is, from a host standpoint of view, if you're a full service brand, it's kind of imagine every host learns everything they need to know about each customer just before they walk in the door, right? And so whether that is recognizing a member of your loyalty program, which is the case of what we do at PF Chang's, one of our clients, someone who's a member of their loyalty program will get automatically highlighted if they're a walk-in or if they have a reservation. And this way there's a consistent experience and they're able to say thank you and actually recognize that person as a loyalty member. In the event that you don't have a loyalty program, which is often the case as well, a lot of our clients will actually flag people who are in the top 5% or the top 10% so that we know who's coming into the restaurant and we don't miss our best customers. Or if someone gave you poor feedback on the last visit, you're able to acknowledge that as well. So that's from the host stand. Next up is curbside. So the whole thinking here is that numbers don't pick up orders, but customers do. And Bartaco is a fantastic example of that. They had a customer who had ordered to go for several weeks in a row. They had a note on that person's profile that they were expecting a baby in mid-April. So lo and behold, early April, this person made another order, and Bartaco put a onesie that says, "I love tacos," into the bag. And the guest was blown away. They posted on LinkedIn, they posted on Facebook about, "I can't believe these people knew who I was. They actually cared about me, and they saw that my wife and I were expecting a baby." Just a really great way, even in a curbside model, to make an impression on the guest. And then next up, when you think about marketing automation and what the future of marketing is like for restaurants, I think it's going to look and feel a lot like e-commerce, where content is dynamically placed in the emails and in the text that we see. What you ordered might be the photo that you see in the next email. So the point here is every communication should feel like it came from a friend. And we're not just talking about the select few people in a loyalty program. We're talking about 100% of customers across the business. Next up, when you think about trying to capture feedback from folks, we want to know whose opinions really matter. And we want to be able to drill down and understand what those trends are. So you want to isolate feedback from your best customers. What are the top 20% of our customers saying? Are they the ones saying the portion sizes are too big? Did they like the new menu items that we shipped? An example here from California Fish Grill, they're able to send out a targeted email survey after the fact if someone ordered one of the new menu items. And that way they can combine both the quantitative data of did someone who ordered this item come back another visit? That's the quantitative side, with the qualitative side as well. What are the guests actually thinking about these new menu items? So all of this stuff together comes to fruition in the form of Wisely's CDP. And I think this is super important. It's going to be the topic of our conversation with Warwick in just a moment. But being able to get all the customer data into one central place where we have one guest record that can drive action throughout the rest of the brand. And we can push the data into real estate, into training and scheduling, into marketing systems, and many more. So we're going to spend the next little bit of time talking through what that looks like at Global Franchise Group. Thanks for joining. On to Warwick. Warwick, you and I have talked a lot about trying to get all the customer-facing systems to talk so that you can have a cohesive message with your guests across every channel, hence the name of your title, Omni-Channel. And I know that we've spent a good amount of time getting that all in place for GFG. tying together the payment processor data with point of sale and loyalty and all the rest. So I'd love to hear from your perspective. What is a CDP?
Today, I think for those that are on the call today that are listening in, I think there's always that burning question of, well, I have a CRM, why do I need a CDP? So it's a great question. So I think when you're thinking about a CDP, the CDP is really your events, your behaviors, the actions that users are taking across your ecosystem. So think about that as someone that's on the website, on your mobile website, somebody that's in store, somebody that's on the mobile app, somebody that's interacted with a various media channel. And all of that information is essentially being piped into your customer data platform. And from there, you're able to take those events or attributes that the user is taking and then marry that up with a potential CRM, so your email service provider, so that you can start to communicate with your guests in a more cohesive way. So as you mentioned, Mike, it might be introducing some dynamic content where it could be a specific food item that the guest purchased or a specific day part that the guest might be engaging in, so that you can send them more relevant content that's more relevant to the user, which ultimately leads to better frequency and a quicker recency.
Got it. So at the end of the day, you're doing all this because you want to drive recency and frequency. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, and obviously in higher average spend as well. So and that's typically the end product of what we see is those two things lead to ultimately higher lifetime value, which we're fundamentally tracking now through the CDP.
Yeah, right. And I'd love to hear, and I'm sure the audience would too, what was the moment when it dawned on you that having a CDP was the right move? And also, what was that set of criteria that came together for the rest of your team to say, yeah, let's move forward with this now?
Yeah, and I think, ultimately we started at the very end. I mean, I think as a group, we sat down and we said, what is it that we would love to be able to achieve? How do we want to communicate with our guests, and what is the type of content that we would like to really, send them at the end of the day? Mm-hmm. And so when we sort of started there and worked our way backwards, we recognized that there was some fundamental holes in our ecosystem. There were some pieces of data that we just didn't have in the software that we were already using on a daily basis. And so that really led us to then having a conversation as a subgroup of our organization, and then, with our C-suite, to then recognize that this was the type of software that we needed to implement to get to the end goal that we were trying to achieve.
Yeah. And I know that you've taken a lot of cues over the years and you've studied retail. And that's, I think a lot of folks talk about how retail had the data in a more accessible place. And because of that, maybe a few years ago, or even up to 10 years ago, they were able to start doing these personalized campaigns. Is that the goal? Is that how you all think about it and talk about it internally?
Yeah, I mean, we're constantly studying other verticals. I think as customers, we've all experienced fantastic things, whether it's through retail or hospitality, travel. There's so many things that we've learned through those other verticals on how those big brands are really going to market and how they're interacting with their customers. And I think this is where the QSR space is finally getting to now, is that we're recognizing that our customers are looking for those same experiences every day. And the brands that are really focusing on that are really starting to get ahead now. The last 12 months was very stressful for everybody, of course. And everyone's had to pivot and move very quickly. So I think those brands that are now taking that focus to just hone in on customer data and drive guest experience is where they're going to continue to win. Yeah.
And fundamentally the last 12 months too, I think, because, the shift to online in a lot of brands that I talked to today, the online spend is still staying there, even with dine-in coming back. But there's just more data, even brands that are doing pay at the table now, like a lot of things turned digital overnight that were paper or analog maybe 12 months ago as a receipt, but now there's a digital record of that. And I think that's a foundational thing to being able to know what people's preferences are and what customer lifetime values are like. So I think that's a really great point that you bring up. One thing that I'd be curious to hear your perspective on when you looked at the CDP market. There are several key players that are out there. Wisely, I think, is vertically focused in restaurants. That's all we do. There are certainly horizontal players, though, that do a good job. Could you just share your perspective on what your decision criteria were and why you ended up you went with a vertically focused one that's focused just in restaurants? What drove that decision?
Yeah, no, great question. And I think in the end, the pivotal part of the process was the integration to the point of sale. And so we don't use a well-known brand out there. So we're not using an NCR or a Par Brink. So we use a more specialized POS for our pizza brand Roundtable. Mm-hmm. And that was a huge challenge for a couple of the major CDP providers. And so with that, we decided to partner with Wisely because of the expertise in point of sale. And that was just an integration that was a lot easier for the Wisely team to take on. And that was the core decision that really led us to Team Wisely at the end of the day.
Yeah. The CDP, in my opinion, is only as good as the data that you can get into it. And I think you absolutely need the point of sale data because that gives you the behavioral, view of what the customers order, what they're ordering, also who their server is. There's a lot of insight that you get from the point of sale data, and then being able to reconcile that on the back end with payment processor data allows you to see, what we talk about, which is customers, not transactions. A lot of times, if you just have point of sale data without the record of the customer tying it together end to end, you look at each transaction as an individual customer and you can't piece the visits together over time. So I think those are both great points. Now, when you think about the evolution of restaurant technology, there's been all kinds of talk about it in the last, few years, even going back maybe 5 years. I would love to hear your perspective of just knowing where you are. Like, why is CDP an important initiative for restaurant brands to be considering now, just bearing in mind all the stuff that's happening out there with consumer expectations?
Yeah, and I think, just to echo a couple of your previous statements, I think a lot of brands are very data rich now. And so getting data out of your point of sale, getting data from your various media partners, everybody has access to it now. I think it's what you do with it at the end of the day, and how cohesively you can then move it around is kind of what's separating brands that are starting to skip away again versus those that are feeling perhaps a little stuck. And I think it lends itself then to guest experience because there's so much information there about what guests are doing. And I think now over the last 12 months, guest experience is everything, and how you're interacting with that brand through the channel and handoff mode that they want to interact with you, how you're delivering on that, and speed and efficiencies and all of those things, creating frictionless experiences. The brands that are doing that extremely well, that really can say, yeah, we know our customers and the customers feel that same way in return, that's where they're going to continue to spend their money. And so having the infrastructure support a CDP is only going to lend yourself extremely well to getting in there and having that conversation where it's like, two friends having a cup of coffee at the end of the day. That's really what you're trying to strive to achieve with your messaging.
Yeah. I love that point about it sounds like some friends talking. Do you think, one of the things that I think is potentially a concern for a lot of brands, particularly ones that are, anywhere from 10 to a few hundred locations, is how do we actually, to have all this data and not do anything with it is the same as not having the data at all, right? So, unless we're sure we know how we're going to act on it, this is all just fun theory to talk about, right? But it's not going to make a difference in our P&Ls. And that's, at the end of the day, what brands have to be focused on. So I'd love to hear from your perspective. What does that look like for GFG over the next 12 months? What do you think will change about the nature of your customer relationships? And also, what's the team structure that you have going on behind it? I think people would love to hear, like, do you need to have an engineering team? Do you need to have, what does your marketing team look like? Could you spend a moment talking about what does the future look like?
Yeah, I mean, now that we have this data layer in place, I mean, we are really just pushing ourselves to get more efficient with how we're interacting with our users. So whether that's through media partners or through our own channels,
Hmm.
we've already had some quick wins just through being able to group our users in ways where we can now message them so much more efficiently, on Facebook or Instagram or some channels that most QSR brands are using. And we've already seen CPAs come down just because our messaging is so much tighter to that end user. So I think that's
I
going to
think
be
that's sorry to cut you off. I think that is an insanely critical point, especially for more of a finance centric audience, right? You're talking about CPAs coming down, so cost per acquisition coming down. That's going to drive. Matt, could you spend a moment drilling into that point, like why those CPAs coming down is so massive?
Yeah, and I think the thing with most media partners now is the costs are going up. So every single year we're seeing overall Facebook and Google's costs continue to rise. And so really getting your cost per acquisition down is a byproduct of how well you're interacting with your users. And that's, through, Facebook's quality scores and those sort of aspects sort of determine how high your CPAs are going to be. So the more relevant the data is and the better engagement that you're getting with your content, the better your CPAs are going to be. And that is always going to be linked to the information that's being piped into the media channels. So that's critical because you're trying to lower your cost per acquisition down as far as you can get it. And that ultimately means that you just have a longer runway than in terms of, driving the ability to acquire more guests, based on your media budgets. So it's a huge piece now, and so having that first party data is just so critical to really being able to do that.
Totally. And I just final closing thoughts on the team side of things. I think, correct me, but it sounds like the approach for GFG is on the engineering side, it's let's pick the right partners that we trust to do that engineering work. And then that allows your team to focus on the value add messaging sides. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah, correct. I mean, we are always in a buy mode. We typically don't have huge staff of engineers on hand to be able to spin up a custom software and custom things. So we're always looking to third-party partners to really sort of bridge that gap. And so that's, depending on the size of your brand, I would say most people are in that buy mode most of the time. So again, this is kind of where you have to make sure when you're doing your evaluation that the piece of software that you're looking to purchase can really fit well with the constructs of your ecosystem. So as you said, I mean, point of sale is one of those most critical pieces. So that's really an important part as you're evaluating CDP.
Yeah, and it's one of the founding CTO of Uber Eats is part of Team Wisely, and one of the things that struck me about a comment he made once was that whatever the cost is, the cost you think it's going to take to build a solution from the ground up. If you are a restaurant brand that does have that, does have an engineering team, earmark 3 to 5 times that cost over the next 5-ish years. Because you're going to have to keep, when you buy software, you're also buying their roadmap, right? Especially when you buy a SaaS product. So the product continues to get better. It's important to think about that lifelong journey of it as well. It's not just a one and done, ship it and then we're there. Cool. Well, Warwick, thanks so much for joining me. Really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and the journey that you went through at GFG. Pleasure to have you on.
Thanks, Mike. Appreciate it. Cheers, mate.
Of course. A couple of closing thoughts. So when I think about what the world's going to look like in a few years from a restaurant technology perspective, I think that what was true in the past will be even more true in the future. And what I mean by that is that the best restaurant brands, they were always focused on serving their customers. It was always about everything. We're guest centric. We want to make sure that they leave happier than they came in. And I think that there are going to be new ways of achieving that very same goal. So when I pick my head up and think about what does the world look like in 3 years, I think you're gonna see that customer data is no longer a new thing, right? It's just the way that we all have been operating, and specifically lifetime value data will not be new. It will be part of every decision. And there's a quote from the COO of PF Chang's a great client of ours, Art Kilmer. He said to me recently, focusing on customer lifetime value means that you put the customer at the center of every decision. And I think that's so true. It's going to be that way for limited service brands and full service brands. So I would just reiterate the point that I think any brand that's not focused on measuring and improving the lifetime value of their customers systemically, like in a structural way, and it's not part of management team conversations. How many customers do we acquire? How are we retaining customers? What's their frequency? What's their spend? Those are the 4 metrics that will drive the future. And so I think in 3 years' time, that's going to be what success is going to look like, is focusing on those input metrics. So in closing, thanks for joining. Really appreciate everyone making the time. Again, I'm Mike Vichik from Wisely, and Wisely can help brands put customers at the center of every decision, saying goodbye to transactions, hello to customers. Thank you.
Hello everyone, thank you so much for joining Revenue Management Solutions, better known as RMS, for today's session. My name is Bob D'Onofrio, Chief Client Officer, and I'm joined by Implementation Manager Vicky Feng. RMS is a tech-empowered consulting firm that provides patented, data-driven solutions to our clients, helping them drive sales and profitability in more than 100,000 restaurants globally. Today we're here to talk about Materi, the cloud-based software solution designed to empower franchise brands to better understand, manage, and navigate their financial health more effectively and more efficiently. RMS has spent the last 27 years analyzing data for hundreds of thousands of franchise locations and interacting with dozens of franchise brands. Over that time, we have uncovered a common challenge. Even the most sophisticated brands lack a complete picture of the organization's financial health, and that was pre-pandemic. With the industry-wide disruption we've seen over the last 18 months, the ability to effectively and efficiently share financial data across the organization is more critical than ever. Materi, which means to measure in Latin, is the automated answer to financial transparency. Materi is currently utilized in more than 30,000 units across 35 countries and is available in 15 languages and 27 currencies, and we're adding more every day. Materi allows you to forget about the heavy lifting. The platform easily collects, aggregates, and standardizes unit-level financials from any source so that you can spend less time collecting data and more time on actionable insights. It's an easy-to-use solution for aggregating, benchmarking, and evaluating franchisee financial health across the organization. Vicky, 2020 was obviously a tough year for the restaurant industry. Now that we're more than a year into the pandemic, when talking to franchisees and franchise brands, what kind of issues are they dealing with today?
Yep, from our team's conversation, it's clear that the financial data is essential for both brands and franchisees, especially now that the variable cost fluctuates drastically, the labor demand fluctuates, and the increase on minimum wage in the market. So the burden now weighs heavily on the brand to help franchisees to recover from the pandemic, and also the franchisees themselves to achieve higher revenue. Now more than ever, it's important to have a platform to standardize your financial data coming in and then utilize that data to benefit both the brands and the franchisees by helping them identify where the opportunities and growth lies. So Materi helps both brands and franchisees to analyze not only on the store level financial performance, but also across a portfolio of stores depending on the user's access level. As the users log in, they can already get a quick overview of their business performance on the most recent period at a click of a button.
So Vicky, I know one of the main challenges encountered by many operators and brands out there today is the time they spend chasing down financials and then compiling that information into tedious spreadsheets. It's really the old 80-20 rule. 80% of the time is spent collecting the data, leaving just 20% of the time to analyze and develop actionable insights. In fact, I recently spoke with a major global brand that was using financials from 2019 to evaluate the need for franchisee assistance throughout the pandemic. Materi solves the lag problem immediately upon deployment. The platform collects, aggregates, and standardizes comprehensive unit and organization level financials and provides data on the KPIs that matter most to you and to our brand partners. It flips the 80-20 rule in your favor. In fact, users have shared with us what used to take days or even weeks to complete can now be completed in just minutes with Materi. So Vicky, can you show us some of the ways that our franchisor partners are using the system to share financial data effectively and efficiently?
Absolutely. By using the system overview in the dashboards, users gain access to intuitive snapshots and a deeper understanding of their own business portfolio. It provides a look into the year-over-year unit level profitability and also help them to make informed decisions to right-size and future-proof the brand. Let me just show you real quick what the information looks like on Materi. Here I am on the system overview page with one franchisee of 25 stores for the period of December 2019. On top here, you can see the snapshot with 6 KPIs: sales, guest counts, average check, cost of sales, labor, and EBITDA. Each of the tile has the year-over-year change for that period. Also on the right here with the line chart, it gives you the trailing 12 months information for that particular tile selected. For this example, sales, comparing to last year's information and performance. In the middle is the Map Explorer. In this instance, again, it's showing the tile KPI for sales. You can see a color-coded display for each store's performance for that KPI. The blue is stores that are doing good, and the red is stores that are doing not so good. So here you can click on to one of the blue store. It will show you that store's information. So the sales for that store for the month of December 2019 is actually up 15.5% comparing to the year prior. And let's see one of the yellow store. For that store sale, it actually only increased 0.1%. So if you have a store that's performing less than 10%, it will be color-coded red. At the bottom here, you will see a worksheet that can be customized with any attributes that you wanted to add and can be quickly sorted for each KPI. All of these information can be exported through the Excel icon on the top right-hand corner and can be further analyzed and drilled down to make better decisions.
I think one thing we can all agree on is that more profitable franchisees are certainly happier franchisees. And I think that's one of the reasons that Materi's benchmarking feature is one of the most popular amongst franchise users. Most of the time when franchisees submit P&L data, they receive little or no feedback on that submission. Many franchise organizations therefore then go out and spend considerable time creating their own benchmarking templates, which can often be incomplete and can even be misleading. With Materi, franchisees gain instant visibility to anonymous, system-wide financials and unit-level performance. Through the peer benchmarking feature and the use of interactive reports, franchisees can now compare their standardized P&L line item by line item to others using attributes that are specific to the brand. Those attributes might include geography, sales volume, price level, store type. In fact, just about any piece of information that can be used to segment restaurants can be incorporated into the Materi platform.
Yes, let's take a look at some of the benefits that you mentioned. So here I'm on the benchmark page with the same franchisee with 25 stores. This is also for the period of December 2019. Overview, it will give you the 6 KPIs aggregated with the store selected for their performance, comparing to the benchmark group performance. And also on the right here, you will see the opportunity cost for the stores to improve to the level of benchmark. For this demo, we will look at the food cost. It will collapse into more details for each store's performance. You can also sort it for each column. So for this example, store 174 for food cost has the highest food cost. Comparing to the benchmark group, it is 5.3% higher, which result into a over $4,000 opportunity cost. So if that stores get their food cost percentage to the benchmark level, it would actually save them over $4,000. You can also drill into the individual store's performance by clicking into the store, and it will show you the summary P&L for that particular period with all 6 KPIs, its performance compared to the benchmark, how it's comparing to the benchmark, and the opportunity cost for each KPI. For example, for this store, not only is its food cost over the benchmark group by over 5 points, its labor cost is also over 10% over its benchmark group. For this store, the labor cost actually will save them over $8,000 if they get to the benchmark level. We can also work with brands by feeding the system a menu price index, what we call MPI, to make sure we are comparing apples to apples when it comes to large brand with locations across the country. The difference in pricing could cause inaccurate comparison when the system benchmark, and MPI helps to minimize that inaccuracy.
Let's talk about what this looks like from a deployment perspective. As a Materi implementation manager, you're currently in the midst of onboarding a brand with more than 450 users who operate more than 14,000 restaurants across 40 countries. It sounds quite daunting. Can you tell us a little bit about the setup and onboarding process and what that might look like for a brand that's interested in incorporating Materi into their system?
Absolutely. So we help the brand to onboard all their franchisees and users, and the setup is actually very simple and straightforward, and it integrates information from nearly any accounting source through a fast and secure upload. It's a quick upload after each period after the initial layout setup. So here, I'm on the page for the upload process. After you set up a layout, the layout would appear, and all you need to do is simply click on the upload button, drop in a file from your accounting software, and then click continue to submit that file. The great thing about Materi is that our client finds a solution is highly tailored to their needs, and we work closely with the brand to make sure that Materi fits their needs with additional features such as our debt module. If you're interested in getting more information, I would highly recommend you to schedule a demo. We can quickly walk through the process and what it looks like and how Materi can integrate best with your organization.
Thank you, Vicki. So before I give contact information, let's summarize a few key points. First of all, Materi is cloud-based, which means it's always on, it's always ready to use, so that you can spend less time collecting data and more time analyzing and looking for insights. It's collaborative, right? Features like the customizable dashboards and the interactive reports give brands better insights into their own financial picture and franchisees a benchmark to their peers. So everyone in the organization has actionable insights at their fingertips and can simulate and optimize their own map to recovery. And it's for everyone. Materi's real-time, tailored reports allow you to set KPIs specific to your organization and track the data that matters most to you. And because it is agnostic to the accounting software, it will ingest data from virtually any source. And finally, it's trusted. As we mentioned earlier, 30,000 franchise locations use Materi globally to plan, execute, and optimize their recovery strategies. So I'd like to thank everyone again for joining us today. I hope that we've piqued your interest. I invite you to schedule a full demo of the platform today by going to revenuemanage.com or by reaching out to me directly at bob@revenuemanage.com. So you can see for yourself how the world's leading brands are using Materi to improve profitability and accelerate growth.
Thank you all so much for joining us today. We are with Paradox, and we're so excited to introduce you to our recruiting assistant, Olivia, and thanks for letting us be a part of Demo Day. Before we get going, quick introductions. My name is Tori McGlynn. I am the franchise specialist here at Paradox. So I work with franchise groups day in and day out, and I know we are in some crazy hiring times right now. So excited to share a little bit with you about what we're doing to help organizations stay competitive.
And I'm Joshua Seacrest. I'm our Vice President of Client Advocacy out of Paradox. And previously was the lead of global talent acquisition teams at Abercrombie & Fitch and Hollister, as well as most recently at McDonald's, where we partnered up with Paradox. So excited to share some of our journey there.
Awesome. All right, so quick agenda for the day. We're going to give you a brief introduction to Paradox, Olivia, introduce you to everything that we're doing over here, but then we're going to jump into the real fun stuff, which is the actual demo of what Olivia does and how she creates magical moments for candidates every day. And then we'll share some client stories. And Josh, I have a feeling McDonald's might sneak in there at the end too.
I'll be ready.
So at the core of what we do, we really believe that if you get the people thing right, you can build the teams that change the world. And our goal every day is to be out there empowering every organization that we're partnered with to do the same thing. Especially in the franchise space, you guys have such a unique opportunity where, you know, your people are the reason why someone might come to your location versus, you know, the location down the street. And so it's really critical that you hire the best people to be the best representation of your brand. And I know we're here to talk about technology, and yes, we will talk a lot of technology. But ultimately, you know, we want to enable technology to have people spend more time with people. Like, we don't want technology to be a replacement for people, but we also don't want people having to manage the technology. That's the whole point of it, is that it should run seamlessly on its own. So that's really what we're here to talk about today, is how you guys can be using that time that you're getting back from, you know, automating pieces of your recruitment process and focusing that time really where it matters most. We're super fortunate to be trusted by clients that are on this list. You know, one thing that I will say about each of these clients is that they're co-creators, they're inventors, they are people that really want to look at the recruitment process and turn it on its head and think, how could it be better? So we're very lucky that we, in our 5 years that we've been in business, that we're able to be trusted by organizations like these. And we're not really here to talk about a chatbot today. I know that's probably right where some of your minds went when you heard Olivia, technology, oh, this must be a chatbot, but it's really not. She is really creating a transformative recruiting experience. So I'm going to challenge you all today to kind of check what you know about recruiting at the door and come in open-minded. Like, let's think about the ways that we can change the recruitment process and have it be a better experience for everyone. So quick little background on myself. I was actually a recruiter for 4 years before I joined Paradox. And this slide makes me laugh every time because everything that is in the red boxes here are things that I would get as a recruiter. And I worked at a boutique recruiting firm, so candidates felt real free to say things in front of me. And things like, why do I submit my resume into a black hole? No one ever responds back to me. why do I just get ghosted? I interview and then I never hear anything back. And candidates, they're wise. They've caught on to this whole technology and recruitment arena, and it can become kind of disheartening. Candidates feel like they're not really being seen, they're not really being heard, and ultimately that can become indicative of your brand. And I know each of you that are probably watching this right now have worked really hard to establish your brand, and we don't want the experience that a candidate has when they're applying for a job to tarnish that in any way.
And Tori, especially within this space, right? Within franchise and QSR, hospitality and retail, I mean, your candidates are also your customers. That's what we saw so much at Abercrombie and Hollister, as well as McDonald's, is those who are coming through and seeing the job posting, seeing the job advert within stores or restaurants. They're there because they're our customers. So we wanted to give them a really great experience. And then what else we were starting to see was just how many jobs they were typically applying to at one time. And so, job seekers were looking at, applying to 8, 10, 12 different jobs, and making sure that you stood out and gave a really fast and great experience was really key as a part of this.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And to that, I think we would all want the recruitment experience to be a little bit more friendly, like someone walking into a restaurant to eat, or walking into a store as a customer. We want the experience to look like that. And so that's really kind of what we've tried to model with Olivia, is that everything is conversational. Long gone are the days of a formal application and usernames and passwords to try and apply for a job. This should be just like a customer walking in and engaging with one of your employees and having a conversation and having it be very natural and personal. So that kind of led the way for how we think Olivia should interact with a candidate to apply for a job. And ultimately, we want to give everyone an assistant. Who doesn't want an assistant? I certainly do. We want your virtual assistant to help get work done, to help your teams get work done, and to help assist your candidates throughout the way. So I'm sure if we have any of our HR recruiting teams listening in today, what you would have Olivia do would look something like this. You would probably have your assistant take a lot of the work of scheduling candidates and screening them off of your plate. But the other thing that's really unique about the franchise space in restaurants specifically is that a lot of that work for screening candidates and scheduling them for interviews, that falls on your managers. That falls on the people that are there trying to do, day-to-day operations, working with your current employees, making sure your customers are happy. We don't want them spending time locked against a computer in the back office, just trying to screen and schedule candidates. We want them focused there on where it matters most. And that's, keeping things going, especially right now when hiring times are really tough. And we're just starting to get back and open up after COVID. We want them to be focused on the customers and the operations that are keeping everything going. So that shouldn't be our reality. We shouldn't be wasting time looking at candidates' applications anymore. And that's why Olivia was born. That's what she's meant to do. So I'm excited to introduce all of you to her. She's going to be your new best friend. And she is going to help really create all of the magical moments. So as we go through this process, I'm probably going to be referring to her and she, and look at what she can do, because it really is her. She's the one that is creating those moments for the candidate and the hiring managers. Won't go too deep here, but these are really just the 4 main problems that we set out to solve with Olivia. And it's making it simple and easy for candidates to engage 24/7. Let's be honest, your employees need a break. Olivia doesn't. She can keep working. And we want to make sure that candidates are hearing back from you all. Again, going back to kind of that your customer is your candidate. We want them to make sure that they're feeling heard and seen by you all. We also want to make sure that the experience is mobile first and consumer grade. I know Josh can share a little bit more about this, but that was a main driving factor between McDonald's implementing Olivia and deciding to really transform their recruitment process was they took an honest, hard look at what the experience was like for a candidate going through and applying, and if that was indicative of the experience that they wanted. And then last but certainly not least, definitely taking away a lot of the time spent screening and scheduling candidates and reallocating that time back to your managers. So this is the whole big crazy idea. And this might not make a lot of sense right now, but we'll start to put the pieces together for you. So the whole idea is that ultimately your next ATS isn't really an ATS anymore. It's Olivia. She can handle the whole recruitment process start to finish. And we're going to walk through a lot of these pieces today, but you can see really what this chart shows is just the experience that the candidate goes through from start to finish. And the candidate's on the bottom saying, I'm looking for a job. And Olivia's at the top, and all of the different touch points that she can have with a candidate, all the way from looking for a job through to onboarding and paperwork. So we're going to try to cover a lot of this today. And I promise this will all start to make a lot more sense once you even have a better idea of what Olivia does.
Yeah, Tori, I think that was a piece that got us so excited, is this idea of a simple, easy, lightweight, end-to-end solution that was really easy and intuitive for our hiring managers to pick up and use. Almost like when you pick an iPhone up, and first start using it, you get it. And I think that wasn't something we were used to within this space. It was always clunky technology that we didn't always love, that was hard to use, that required a lot of training. And so this big idea of an end-to-end solution that's easy, that automates, that gives managers time back, was so exciting to us.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, you hit on a great point that most ATS systems weren't built for a frontline general manager in a restaurant. A lot of them weren't configured to be that way. They have amazing tools and features and functionality, but that gets really utilized at a restaurant level. So the ease and simplicity of Olivia to be able to, take on a lot of this work is really, the main draw that a lot of our clients have to her.
Absolutely.
So we're going to dive into the hire product today. This is really what is meant to be that full end-to-end solution for you all. So we're just going to jump right in. Things like turning on jobs can now happen in seconds. You don't have to create a whole job posting. That's all already done. It lives behind the scenes. Turning on jobs is as simple as literally toggling them on and off, like you can see here in this video. And that will help actually push your jobs out to where candidates are going to start to find you, whether that's on a job board, on your website. There's various ways that Olivia can engage your candidates. And I always say, we want to be everywhere. We want Olivia to be everywhere. We want to be her to be engaging your candidates no matter where they are. But no longer is creating job postings and turning them on a 30-minute activity for a manager. It's now 3 seconds of just, toggling them on, and that will automatically then get distributed out to the sources where candidates can find you.
Yeah, I love that the measurement of success here for your hiring managers is measured in seconds.
Yeah.
How quickly can they go in, toggle something in and out? And you'll see as Tori works her way through this, not only how fast and easy it is on the candidate side, but just as importantly, your hiring manager just isn't in the system much. It's toggles that take seconds. It's pressing quick clicks to help them focus on other things.
So this is an example of, kind of one of those avenues where a candidate might be finding you, a job board like Indeed, where a candidate might land on a crew member position, hit apply, and be routed directly to Olivia to start going through a conversation, giving her their information, screening them for the job to make sure they're a fit. So just gives you a little bit of insight into how we can engage candidates, even if it is from a job board. And then also on your website, we don't want to be missing candidates wherever they might be coming from. So this is a demo environment today. So bear with me if you're looking at this and you're like, who's lunch bag? I've never heard of lunch bag. It's a demo. There is no place called lunch bag. But here you can see the candidate is walking through, kind of a job search conversation. If they land on your website, they can come and tell us what they're interested in, where they're looking to work, and we'll match them with the relevant opportunities that are close to them. And then they can start applying just through a conversation with Olivia. So again, no longer is it give me, add in a job that you're looking for and a city and state. And oh, by the way, you have to give me a search radius that I'm working within. And if I mess one of those things up, I'm not going to be able to find a job. This is just a casual conversation with Olivia. And one amazing thing about Olivia is that, unlike me, she can speak multiple languages. And, ultimately your candidates are multilingual. We don't want to be missing out on great candidates just because they might not be comfortable applying for a job in something that's not their native language, that's not their first language. So you can see here the candidate engaged and said, habla español. I do know at least that much of Spanish. And Olivia starts speaking back. This is where you'll lose me. No clue what she said back in this conversation. But she can immediately transition on the fly. So any of your candidates, if they come and they start speaking in Spanish to her or French, Olivia is going to be able to immediately switch and engage with them in the language that's, most comfortable to them. So after a candidate has figured out what job they're interested in, we've matched them with that job, Olivia is going to start to collect their contact information, name, phone number, email address. And you'll notice that we're walking through this on a mobile device because our text to apply experience is quite different than what you might experience other places. We're not going to send a link to an application and expect someone to do that on a mobile device when an application isn't super mobile friendly. We're just going to go back and forth in conversation with the candidate like they were engaging with their friend and texting their friend. So you can see Olivia here is starting to ask some screening questions. All of these are customizable. You might see some of the questions on here and say, Tori, I would never ask that to a candidate. That's totally fine. We'll customize it for you. And ultimately, let's use these questions to determine if it's worth spending time interviewing this candidate. Are we going to have our manager spend time interviewing them? Are we going to spend time interviewing them? And so let's make sure they're qualified. One of the big things that we're seeing in the job market right now is speed. We have to get to candidates as quickly as possible, and it has to be easy for candidates to engage. So you'll probably notice as we went through this, there's no usernames, there's no passwords, there's no barriers to applying for a job. It's just a simple conversation, but yet we're getting all of the information that we need. So, this conversation can happen within 90 seconds for the candidate, and they've gone through and they've actually applied for the job and they don't even really realize that they're applying.
Yeah, some really interesting data there, Tori, is logins with usernames and passwords. You see typically a 60% drop-off rate. So right now when every candidate's precious, having some of those hurdles in, not let alone, if you have a application that might take 10, 15, 20 minutes, where you also could see at a dropout rate, what an advantage to be able to remove those hurdles, have a really quick apply process, and get to that candidate base so much faster. So just really fascinating there. And then the other piece is just, it's one thing to be able to see it on the screen. I've gotten to see it in real life and hear from our clients on like these anecdotes, right? And it's so fun to hear about customers who see the QR code or the text message in a drive-through and are texting, and you can just see how easy this would be for them to fill out safely in a drive-through. Yeah. Or while they're waiting on their meal, being able to actually go through a full application in the moment. And comparing that to the experience of what people were probably doing 1, 2, 3 years ago, and maybe in some of your locations right now, which is potentially seeing an advertisement, having to remember that, waiting until they get back to their computer at home, logging into a system. So what a competitive advantage to be able to have that right at the point of purchase.
Yeah, absolutely. And ultimately, if we meet a qualified candidate, we don't want them going anywhere else. Like we know, Josh mentioned earlier, we know the candidates that are coming in through a job board are typically applying to 12 jobs at one time. And, we don't want this candidate, if they're qualified and we want to talk to them, why would we let them go somewhere else without letting them know that? So Olivia can automatically schedule qualified candidates in that initial engagement. So you can see here, this candidate confirmed a time on Saturday. This candidate will now receive interview reminders 24 hours prior and 1 hour prior to the interview. So we're seeing groups in the QSR space that are seeing upwards of 90% show ratios with candidates that get scheduled through Olivia because, and to me, it's multifaceted. We're scheduling them as quickly as possible. Sometimes that's even the same day. If they apply at 7 o'clock this morning, why couldn't we see them at 3 o'clock this afternoon for an interview? So we're shortening the window and opportunity for them to go find another opportunity, apply for it, interview, and then, just not show up for your interview that might be scheduled. So I think that's a really large part. And then the interview reminders, being able to automatically remind candidates 24 hours prior and 1 hour prior allows them, if they needed to reschedule or something, they can do that directly with Olivia too. So just helping to make the process as easy as possible for a candidate and putting you in the best position to make sure that you're the first person to get them scheduled for an interview. I'll always say we can't always determine what a candidate does before they find Olivia, but we can certainly try to impact what they do after. And if I'm this candidate and I know I'm scheduled for an interview tomorrow, I'm probably not going to go apply to 10 more jobs right now. I'm going to go have fun with the rest of my day. I'm not going to go apply to a bunch of jobs. I'm just going to, see how this interview goes and then maybe go back and apply for some more.
I was seeing our applicants usually to get to a schedule would be sometimes up to 2-3 days. And then, pretty high no-show rates on top of that. To your point, not having the capability to have some flexibility for them to reschedule, not being able to have the time to connect with them. The times that we're seeing across clients now is 3 minutes, under 3 minutes to do the application and schedule them. So again, just a world of difference in how fast you need to be moving to be able to get these candidates, and then the flexibility to make sure that they you have the reminders and ability to reschedule is really key to reducing that no-show rate.
Yeah, absolutely. So speaking of reschedules, let's see what that looks like. A candidate can come here and say, hey, Olivia, I'm not feeling great today. I think I need to reschedule, or can we reschedule? And Olivia is going to be able to take that on. I think we underestimate how many candidates, if given the opportunity to reschedule through Olivia, would actually take that opportunity. Let's be honest. This is the world of the Gen Z and millennial candidate that doesn't want to pick up the phone and call a restaurant and say, I can't make it today. They want to be able to do that through Olivia. So it's really interesting what we've seen too with how many candidates, if we just give them that opportunity, instead of just no showing an interview, they will reschedule. They will reschedule for the following day. And so, it's a great way to make sure that, again, every candidate matters right now. If they had something come up, that's okay. You're human. Like, things happen. We want to just be able to make sure that we can engage with them and get them rescheduled.
And on the flip side, things come up for managers too, right? And so the ability to have an assistant to be able to help you reschedule and still keep that candidate warm, gives you that much flexibility and keeps you, on the floor or helping your staff when, emergency arises.
Absolutely. And ultimately, we should also be able to answer candidate questions. What would candidates even ask if we gave them a way to ask and get instant answers? And, we've seen that candidates ask everything from, what does this job pay? Why should I work for you? Do you have any, what's the mission of the company? Do you guys, support any charities? It's pretty crazy when given the opportunity what candidates will actually ask. And Olivia can deliver customized messages to the candidate, letting them know things that might make you stand apart. Things like how frequently they will get paid, flexible schedules. Those are all things that might be the determining factor between them coming to work with you and coming to work at a competitor down the street. So you can see here, Olivia has some quick answers to things about culture and why should I work for you. We can also have her deliver video content. So if you have videos that really set your brand apart, set your group apart, we can have Olivia deliver those to the candidate. Some of my favorite ones that I see a lot are clients that do a day in the life kind of video, and are able to actually showcase, hey, you're applying for a crew member job. See what our crew member job is like, and watch this quick 30-second video. So a lot of opportunities to engage candidates here and help yourself stand out. And as Josh has alluded to this whole time, we don't want it just to be easy for the candidate. We want it to be easy for your manager too. Anything we can do to help make their life easier means more time with customers, more time with employees, more time focused on operations. So things like sending an offer letter should be 2 clicks and you're done. Everything is meant to be as simplistic as possible. So if and when you have to come into the system, which, let me be very clear, the backend system is wonderful and it's super robust and it can do a lot of things. Ultimately, I don't really want anyone spending time back there. If your manager is spending time back there, it means they're not spending time on the floor. And so if and when they do have to do something, I want it to be as simple as a 10-second engagement, clicking to make a candidate an offer, and you're off. And one of the things we haven't touched on yet is that all this can be done through our mobile app too. So for a manager, that doesn't mean going into a back office and having to be off the floor for 10 minutes while they get logged onto a computer. It can be as simple as pulling out their phone and toggling on a job and then continuing on with the day, or pulling out their phone and hitting send offer and continuing on with their day. Like, it is really meant to be that easy. And I'm sure you're probably thinking, well, that's great, Tori, but like, there's a lot of people out here that are doing this. There's a lot of companies that claim to have AI technology. Really, why are you any different? And for me, it's our clients. It's our client stories. It's the clients that have taken the time to partner with us and co-create and be those inventors of what the future of hiring looks like to get us to this point. And it's the results that we're driving for our clients. So there's a few studies in here that I'll go through kind of high level, but feel free to access them either through our website or through this presentation at a later time to dig a little bit deeper. First Watch, definitely early adopter of Olivia. They have been a client of ours for a few years now. And some of these stats, 96% interview acceptance rate, 91% scheduled in the same day. Like, those are what enable you to get in front of a candidate before anyone else. You can ensure that if a candidate is applying for your job and you're scheduling them the same day, chances are no one else is getting to them before you are, if that's, a 3 or 4 or 5 hour window. And then Wendy's, these case studies actually focused on a group of franchisees that we work with. And again, seeing show ratios as high as 90%, saving 4 to 6 hours per restaurant per day, in time spent trying to track down candidates. That's one thing too, that, your manager spends so much time chasing their tails, spinning their wheels, trying to get candidates just to schedule a time. And it's pretty crazy to hear the numbers that groups are sharing with me right now in terms of, if we got 10 applicants, we might only get in touch with one of them, Tori. Like, those are real stories that people are telling me every day. So being able to eliminate that burden from your manager's plate and ensure that, Olivia's just taking care of it. She's scheduling them and eliminating that time. And then, average time to complete an application, less than 4 minutes. And that's from the time they engage in with Olivia to getting scheduled. Great Wolf Lodge. So some really intriguing stats on this one are around the turnover and the applicant flow rate. I think a lot of people probably think, well, creating a username and password can't be that difficult. Like, candidates can't really have that big of a problem with it. Well, they clearly do. So, providing them an avenue to apply that doesn't require, submitting a username and password, creating an account, doing a long formalized application can truly impact the applicant flow. And also, I get a lot of people that say, how on earth can Olivia impact turnover? Let's be honest. She's helping schedule candidates. She's getting them in for an interview. How on earth is she reducing turnover? And I think it's really that it's the time that we're giving back to your managers who can invest that time in employees. They're not, your managers aren't going anywhere. They still have to be there working, but it's them being able to, find the employee that is the star, that is like, great, we want to put you on a career path here. We don't want to lose you. But it's also getting to a higher percentage staffed. If we look back at that First Watch study, getting to 99% staffed across all openings, that drastically impacts the way that your restaurant, hotel, retail business operates, because your employees are no longer stretched to the max and getting burned out because they're working 60 hours a week. They can have more of a balanced schedule, and that ultimately will impact turnover as well.
And your managers getting to spend time onboarding and training, putting out fires instead of just doing the recruiting. So absolutely right, Tori. There's so much there of what can be repurposed to be able to help retain and get the best people in as you increase your applicant flow.
Yeah. All right, Josh, I'm going to let you tell the McDonald's story a little bit.
Yeah, so some big numbers across our clients. And I think the big piece here is this is game changer technology. It's a way to generation skip from clunky technology of the past to really working and applying how we live. And a lot of us live on our phones. And so by bringing some of this functionality of text and conversation and no logins, makes things simple, intuitive, and lightweight. And so that's really what we found at McDonald's is we wanted to be the fastest apply and schedule to give a competitive advantage. We wanted to make sure those customers who also became candidates had an amazing experience measured by those who didn't get a role in job. So really personalizing that for them, being fast and simple, but also giving them a really delightful experience that matched what we were sharing in our restaurants. And then the last piece was measured by hours. How much time per week could we give back to our hiring managers? Back to Tori, the point you were making, if they can be out on the floor, particularly when they're understaffed, that's a critical time to be able to help their teammates, team members, be successful, train, support. So we just had some really huge numbers, lowering our, the apply into schedule down to 3 minutes, as we talked about. The time to hire shrunk from what was 14 days with all the different steps in the process down to 2. And it's not listed here, but a high 90s candidate satisfaction rate, which was really helpful for our stores and retaining our customers.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
And I've alluded to this all along, but we love partnering with clients that are co-creators and that have a vision for a better way to hire, a bolder way to hire. We're here for that journey. We end a lot of our calls by saying, now that you know a little bit about what Olivia can do, what do you wish she could do? Because we're always trying to push her to be better and to reinvent the way that we look at the recruitment process. But we also measure client success in hugs, or during COVID times, virtual high fives. We are obsessed with our clients. Being client-centric and client-focused is such a critical foundational component of Paradox, and our success is their success, or the opposite of that. Their success is our success. We measure success by what they're seeing and what they're getting from the system and through Olivia. And ultimately, like, that's what matters. That's what matters is the results that are being driven for clients. And that's what gives the hugs or the virtual high fives. So we would love the opportunity, if you're watching this, to get to know you individually, get to know your brand, your business, and learn a little bit from you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thank you so much for joining us today for the Restaurant Finance Monitors Demo Day. Thanks to Wisely, RMS, and Paradox for joining us today. Today's Demo Day presentations will be housed on the Restaurant Finance Monitors website under the tab Webinars. So feel free to watch the sessions again or pass the link on to one of your colleagues. And please don't hesitate to contact each of the company representatives here today if you have questions or would like to take a closer look. That's it for now. Thanks for joining us for Demo Day. Enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.